What if I told you that the one thing keeping you awake at night, the mistake you can't forget, could actually become the very thing that transforms your life? Regret is universal. Studies show that nearly everyone carries some regret, big or small. It's like a backpack they can't put down. For Eduardo, it was a choice that cost someone their life. For Sarah, it was a betrayal that she never forgave herself for. And for me, it's missing too many of my daughter's activities when she was young because I felt the weight of responsibility for 70 employees who counted on me. Hey friends, it's Steve here, your second or maybe your third favorite grandfather. Either way, I'm glad you're here. I make these shows primarily to leave a legacy for my darling granddaughter, a way to pass on important lessons to help her in the future. But these lessons aren't just for her, they're for all of us. Regret doesn't play favorites, and I hope these insights help you navigate it better too. Today we're diving into the power of regret. First, we'll uncover why regret can feel so overwhelming. And then we'll explore real stories like Eduardo's and Sarah's that show how regret can teach us and shape us and even inspire us to do better. Finally, I'll share some lessons from my own journey with regret, things I've said, I've done, or didn't do, and how those perfectly good mistakes helped me move forward. Stick around because by the end, you'll see that regret isn't the end of your story. It's just the beginning. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like this show, and ring the notification bell if there is one, so you never miss insights like these. Let's jump in. Regret is more than just wishing you'd done things differently. Think of it as a signal, a neon sign pointing you to what matters most. I mean, think about it. If you didn't care deeply, would you ever feel regret? No. So instead of fighting it, let's see it as a teacher. But here's the thing. When regret is buried or ignored, it doesn't disappear. It festers, creeping into other areas of your life, affecting your confidence, relationships, and even your health. And as we explore Eduardo's and Sarah's story, you'll see how addressing regret not only brought them peace, but also created ripples that influenced more people than they ever imagined. Imagine regret like a scar. It reminds you of the pain, but it also reminds you that you're healing. Regret doesn't just show you what hurts, it shows you what matters. Let's start small. Regret doesn't just come from things you did, but also from things you didn't do. Hey, maybe you forgot a birthday. You lost your temper. Or maybe you regret not taking that job offer or missing an opportunity to say, I love you. Or failing to stand up for yourself. I mean, here's some common minor regrets that can follow people unless they're addressed. Forgetting an important date. Saying something in anger. Not taking care of your health earlier, or missing a chance to connect with someone you care about. Left unchecked, these small regrets can pile up, creating a sense of dissatisfaction or even a fear of trying again. And there are major regrets too, like choosing the wrong career path, making a financial decision that hurt your family, or hurting someone you love through betrayal or neglect. And when these deeper regrets are buried, they don't just weigh us down. They can alter how we see ourselves, making it harder to move forward. Take Eduardo, for example. On the night of the party, the music was loud, the laughter was contagious, and Eduardo felt invincible with his friends when someone handed him a small bag with some drug in it he didn't recognize. He hesitated for just a moment, and then he thought he'd pass it on to a class friend because he thought, should I really do this? But then he shrugged and telling himself, that's fine. Sean would not have given that drug to me if it wasn't fine. That choice ended with a tragedy when the teenager he handed it to overdosed and lost their life. The next morning, Eduardo sat in his room replaying the night over in his mind, his hands trembling as he thought, if I'd only said no or flushed it, this wouldn't have happened. For weeks, he avoided his friends. He couldn't look at his parents in the eyes. The guilt was unbearable. And a few years later, Eduardo realized that his silence and shame weren't helping anyone. He decided to see how he could go back and talk to high schoolers about the consequences of his actions. Standing in front of a crowd for the first time, his voice cracked as he said, "This is what regret looks like." It was the start of turning his regret into a purpose. "Let me tell you about my mistake." And he began to share his story to help the kids not repeat the same mistake. And then there's Sarah. Back in college, she sat across from her boyfriend at a quiet cafe, guilt swirling like a storm inside her head. She had made a choice, a moment of weakness that had tremendous consequences. And now every word she spoke to him felt like a lie. That choice, cheating on someone she loved, it stayed with her long after the relationship ended. Years later, Sarah still found herself haunted by it. Every time she started a new relationship, she couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't good enough. But then one day, she sat down and wrote herself a letter. In it, she promised to be honest, to take responsibility, and to live with integrity in every relationship going forward. Sarah began sharing her story with friends who were struggling with their own regrets. "We all mess up," she'd tell them, "but we don't have to stay stuck in it." Her regret didn't just follow her, it reshaped her into someone stronger and more compassionate. Over time, she learned that the only way forward was to face her pain head on and grow from it. Making amends is the next step. Eduardo's way forward might be educating others about the dangers of drug use and how it killed his friend, or supporting families affected by tragedies like this one. Sarah's path involved being honest about her past and using her story to help others avoid making the same mistakes. What's remarkable is how by facing their regrets, both Eduardo and Sarah have created ripples that extend far beyond their own lives. It's like throwing a rock into a pond. The initial splash is theirs, but those ripples traveling outward, touching people they'll never even meet. And then there's letting go. Picture packing that regret into a box, sealing it, and then setting it on a shelf. You don't need to carry it everywhere. But I've also seen the devastating consequences when people bury regret instead of facing it head on. In my 30 years as a debt coach, I've witnessed regret drive people to unimaginable extremes. One law school student decided to become an escort to pay her student loans, a decision she deeply regretted and was clearly pained by as she shared her story with me. One man became so overwhelmed by financial failure that he made a horrific decision to end the lives of his wife and daughters just so they'd never know his secret and regret. I've seen couples remain trapped in loveless marriages, their guilt and regret acting as invisible chains. And there was one man, a self-proclaimed God-fearing Christian, who conned countless families out of their hard-earned money. He later admitted to me his regret for the damage he caused, but by then the harm to others and to himself was so deep. When regret festers, it can twist into something destructive, not just for the person carrying it, but for everyone around them. Yet when regret is confronted and worked through, it unlocks the power to heal, to grow, and to create new paths. It's a choice. You can let regret define you, or let it propel you forward to a better future. Remember, it's never too late to begin anew. Now, what about the big stuff, the life-changing mistakes that keep you up at night? Maybe even things you'll never recover from. Ignoring these kinds of regrets can lead to years of feeling stuck, replaying those moments over and over in your mind and questioning your worth. And let's think back to Eduardo and Sarah for a moment. Their mistakes felt insurmountable at first. Eduardo thought, "How can I ever face the world again?" And Sarah believed, "I'll never deserve love." But the impact of dealing with their regrets, turning them into something meaningful, extended far beyond themselves. Eduardo can't undo the tragedy, but by educating others, he's preventing countless similar mistakes. And Sarah, too, she's inspired more people than she'll ever know by showing that even profound regret can lead to growth. It's about finding purpose in the pain and letting that guide your actions moving forward. When regret feels overwhelming, focus on what you can control. If you bury regret, it doesn't stay hidden. It finds ways to show up, bubbles up. It's kind of like a tire with low air pressure that you keep ignoring until it leaves you stranded. Instead, start with small, tangible actions like reaching out to loved ones or working with habits that align with the life you want to live. Let's talk about mindfulness in a way that makes sense for everyone. Mindfulness is really just about focusing on what's happening right now instead of getting stuck in the past or worrying too much about the future. Think of it like working on a car. You're not worrying about the drive ahead or the miles you've already covered. You're just focused on fixing the problem in front of you. Regret thrives when you dwell on it, but life happens in the present. Take a moment to breathe, reset, and focus on what you can do right now to make things better. And don't be afraid to seek support, a trusted friend, a support group, or therapy. For some people, it makes all the difference in the world. Here's the thing. Regret doesn't have to be the end of your story. It's universal and it's powerful, but it doesn't have to define you. Eduardo's story could have ended right there in tragedy, but instead, he's choosing to turn his regret into a force for good, educating others and preventing future harm. Sarah's regret could have held her back forever, but she's using it to live a more authentic life and inspire others to do the same. And for me, I've learned to see my regrets, like missing moments with my daughter when she was growing up, not as failures, but as lessons. They've taught me to prioritize what matters most and live more intentionally. Maybe take 5 minutes today to write down one regret or think about it. And think about what it's taught you. And then write one thing you'll do differently moving forward. Because the ripples of your actions, just like Eduardo's and Sarah's, can reach further than you'll ever know. There's no sense wasting a perfectly good mistake, I always say. Let's learn from it. Remember, regret is hard, but it's also a reminder that you care deeply about something. Use that as your compass to guide your next step. Life is messy. Mistakes are inevitable. But what matters most is what you do next. And hey, if today's insight resonated with you, share something in the comments. Say, hey, it resonated, or I shared this with a friend. Or visit oldguyinsights.me. That's me. And download the free show guide packed with tips and resources. And let's keep this conversation going. Until next time, stay awesome, be kind to each other, and remember to do good things. See ya.